The story begins with a series of home videos in which we see a group of young people having fun. Among them, there is a young couple, Dan and Sky, who are now about to get married. Tommy is the friend in charge of filming the ceremony, and he starts early, recording testimonials from friends Jack and Lauren. In the men's bathroom, he takes advantage of a moment alone with the groom to tease him with jokes about married life. Unmoved, Dan says that Tommy needs to find a girl like Sky. Tommy responds with more unpleasant comments and reminds that Dan had to adhere to his fiancée's religion for her to accept the marriage proposal. The two only realize they are not actually alone when someone exits one of the stalls, and Dan almost dies of embarrassment when he sees it's Mr. Chapman, his future father-in-law. Kicked out of there, Tommy goes to the party hall to interview the bride, who is making the final touches to the decoration with the help of her friend Allison, who is Jack's girlfriend. The ceremony takes place outdoors, and the couple gets emotional during the vows, ending with the traditional kiss amidst general applause. Then the party starts, and Tommy tries to use his role as a cameraman to strike up conversations with the girls, without much success. When the newlyweds arrive at the hall, there is a brief, solemn pause for a collective prayer, but Tommy escapes praying under the excuse of capturing the moment. Soon, the atmosphere returns to being relaxed on the dance floor, and the speeches start right after. Speaking about the moment Dan decided to ask for Sky's hand, Jack says that one should never let their soulmate pass by without taking action. Allison becomes thoughtful upon hearing her boyfriend's words, as they have known each other for 7 years, and he has never talked about formalizing the relationship. Tommy tries to console his friend and tells her she is a 10 out of 10, but his compliments do not help much. Things get even uglier when the bouquet falls right into Allison's hands. Seeing Jack rolling his eyes, she finds no humor in the joke and decides to go home. He runs after her, not knowing what he did wrong, and Tommy interrupts their conversation by arriving with the camera. Out of patience, Allison enters the elevator, and Jack gets annoyed for a moment, but decides to return to the party and forget about the matter for now. Next, the bride's parents go to fetch the gifts from the room, and Tommy offers to help, taking the opportunity to interview both. In the elevator, Mrs. Chapman suddenly feels a shiver, and her husband also mentions feeling a sharp drop in temperature. It is then that the lights begin to flicker, and Mr. Chapman leans toward the camera until he collapses on Tommy. His wife also faints, and we see that their eyes undergo a transformation, turning completely white. Tommy enters a panic and screams for help as soon as the door opens, but he soon hears the shouting in the hall. The phenomenon has occurred with several other people, and Lauren is one of the victims. Seeing Sky so distressed for her friend, Tommy tries to tell only Jack about what happened in the elevator, but she overhears from a distance and becomes devastated by the news about her parents. Right at that moment, a big bang shakes the building, and Tommy says it sounds like a missile. Worried about Allison, Jack goes with him to the courtyard to see what is happening outside. The two are shocked to see that the city is under attack, and several different points are being hit at the same time. As they return inside, a strong earthquake begins to shake the building, causing great destruction. Everyone runs for the stairs, trying to dodge the concrete blocks falling from above. One of the guests loses his balance and falls down the stairwell. Arriving on the ground floor, an unbearable noise makes everyone cover their ears, and we see the clouds moving in the sky in an unnatural way. As the noise ceases, Jack returns to mention his girlfriend and asks if anyone has a signal on their cell phone. Tommy says she sent a message with her location about half an hour ago. Jack seems surprised to learn this, but jealousy will have to wait, as the terrible storm is so close that one of the lightning strikes shatters the glass facade. Giving up on leaving, the four run to the side door and arrive at the sidewalk. Besides the chaos caused by the explosions and the earthquake, there are hundreds of people lying with empty eyes all over the street. Dan is the first to take a guess, but no one takes him seriously when he mentions aliens. Then Tommy gets annoyed when Sky quotes the Bible to explain that this is the famous rapture, an apocalyptic event foretold for centuries. This would mean that all those unconscious have gone to heaven and only sinners are left to experience the end of the world. Tommy counters this hypothesis by reminding that Sky herself goes to church regularly and was not raptured along with her parents. The friends then get startled when something falls from the sky right in front of them, and Tommy confirms it's a giant hailstorm. The street is pounded within seconds as the young people stumble over each other to escape the catastrophe and end up entering a library, along with a crowd of survivors. Dan becomes distressed upon seeing that Sky has lost them and the three separate to find her. After being almost buried by books falling from the shelves, Tommy meets a girl named Sam and finds Sky right after. The other two soon arrive as well, a little annoyed to see Sky looking for a Bible. She finds the passage about the rapture but cannot convince anyone of her theory. She cannot come to terms with being left behind and foresees that the situation will get much worse, pleading with her friends not to leave there. However, Jack is determined to find Allison, and Tommy tells Sky that she might be at a church, where she usually goes when she is sad. This time, Jack cannot hide his jealousy, but agrees to go to the church when Sky confirms that Allison likes it there. Tommy convinces Sky to go along, explaining that it's safer to walk with a group, and upon hearing this, Sam says she will join them. On the way, the group sees a plane crashed on the houses and their wedding carriage passing empty. As they approach the church, they find it strange that the street is so deserted and completely silent. Sky grabs the Bible and prays out loud continuously, asking for forgiveness for her moments of doubt. Then the silence is broken by a sound that seems like a roar, and something flies low past them while the church bell starts to ring. Noticing a rustling near, Tommy tries to illuminate the top of a tree, but the creature is too quick. Sky is attacked without anyone seeing, and Dan is shocked to notice the absence of his bride, who seems to have inexplicably vanished. Only when they hear her scream and look back do they see the winged monster dropping the girl several meters above the ground. Running over, Dan finds Sky injured and rushes her inside the church. The young folks are greeted by Pastor Shay and his assistant Doug. Sam shows that Sky's Bible seems to have been incinerated and is now disintegrating. The pastor takes Sky to the infirmary, and Jack finally finds Allison, admitting he only knew where to look because of Tommy. While Nurse Rachel tends to Sky's back scratches and Dan tries to distract her from the pain, Tommy asks the pastor's opinion about the calamity. Shay also thinks this is the rapture, but does not make much effort to convince the young man, simply stating they will know the truth soon. Then someone arrives announcing that there are more survivors seeking shelter, and among them is a pregnant woman in labor. Despite Rachel's efforts, it is not possible to save the child, and Tommy suspects that the pastor already knew this. Later, he confirms this suspicion and explains that the baby was raptured because it was innocent, just like its entire family. Then Tommy dares to bring up an even tougher issue, asking why God would leave a pastor behind. Shay confesses his lack of faith, admitting that his life was basically just a facade. When Jack says the plan is to wait, Tommy disagrees that it is safe there. This opinion is quickly validated when someone starts banging on the church door, asking to be let in. The lights flicker as everyone hears thuds on the ceiling, as if winged demons are attacking from above. A human figure is thrown against the stained glass window for a brief moment before being pulled away. Thinking the worst, Tommy records a farewell video and Sam arrives just in time to catch a confession. She offers to film the message and promises to deliver it personally if anything happens. Then Tommy looks into the camera and tells Allison that he has always loved her since they first met, but all he wants is for her to be happy, even with someone else. In the church pews, someone with an iPad manages to watch the news, and everyone pays attention. According to the report, the strange sudden death syndrome affected only a portion of the adults, but took all the children. When Sam says her parents were raptured, Tommy does not feel much compassion and tries to cheer the girl up with candy, but she responds that she is allergic to peanuts. The news coverage continues reporting on the global catastrophe and states that the recommendation is not to go outside at all. Regretting his cold attitude, Jack apologizes to Allison and even gets down on one knee to finally ask her to marry him. But then Tommy interrupts the romantic moment, without delicacy. While reviewing the day's footage in search of clues, he finds something disturbing that he now shows to his friends. Jack can hardly believe the demonic figure he sees on the screen, but Pastor Shay is not surprised and explains that it is one of the fallen angels. He also says that this is just the first wave of disasters about to befall the world. Shortly after this, Sky starts to get worse, and Rachel explains to Dan that she needs antibiotics, but they are in their car. Jack and Tommy volunteer to go with Dan to fetch the medicine, but he decides to leave Jack with the girls and only take Tommy. The two cautiously traverse the parking lot and are startled by an alarm that goes off suddenly, but they realize it is just a thief. Arriving at Rachel's car, Dan begins to search for the medicine and finds it at the same time something collides with the windshield. The two friends fall silent, petrified with fear, and then something begins to attack the car and break the windows. A man comes up to the front of the car and recites the classic exorcism rites, which seems to irritate the fallen angel. Tommy and Dan are horrified to see the man being thrown against the hood with incredible force, and they then run back to the church at the first opportunity. Again, Tommy interferes with Jack and Allison's peace, crossing the line this time. He asks why this engagement has taken so long to happen, and Jack loses patience, taking the camera from his hand. He starts to provoke Tommy until he confesses his feelings for Allison, and it is she who has to separate the two. The fight is interrupted by Dan's tearful voice, also confessing to a slip during his courtship with Sky. Allison tries to comfort him and says none of this matters now, but it becomes evident that no one there is a saint. The news broadcast is replaced by an official warning instructing everyone to seek shelter. Sometime later, Rachel tells Dan that the antibiotics did not work, as the thing that scratched Sky transmitted some kind of poison, and the only salvation now is to take her to a hospital. Faced with the extreme danger outside, Jack and Tommy convince Dan to wait until dawn, and then Sam warns that the pastor is calling everyone. Before the sermon, Shay tells Tommy that the rapture is over and no one else will be taken, but he asserts that there is still a chance to save their souls. Then he gives a sermon to everyone, speaking sincerely for the first time and encouraging the congregation to fight against the demons with faith. The response to this boldness comes quickly, with various fallen angels attacking the church roof in a threatening manner. Under Shay's orders, everyone runs to the basement and locks themselves down there, where the only light comes from Tommy's camera. Someone notices Nurse Rachel is missing, but before they can look for her, a horrible sound starts coming from above, indicating that the church has been invaded. The demons seem to be tearing everything apart, and it takes a while for silence to return, allowing the pastor to hear Rachel's screams. Realizing she is in the hallway, he opens the door to let her in, but something grabs her midway and drags her body away. Shay closes the door, but sees it starting to ripple as if it were made of fabric, and realizes there is a fallen angel right on the other side. He then says there is no other way out, and decides to test his faith by opening the door again. The pastor is immediately grabbed and pulled outside, under the horror-filled screams of the congregation. The next morning, Jack says the silence has lasted long enough, and decides to go outside to check, with his friends following behind. The church is completely destroyed, and the pastor is left hanging over the pulpit. In the street, the situation is not much different, and the scene is one of complete chaos all the way to the hospital. Arriving there, they notice many people leaving, and a nurse explains that everyone is going to an emergency center. Jack and Tommy search through the cabinets for any antidote against the poison that might help Sky, but it seems the hospital has already been looted. They then decide to look for a doctor on the other floors, and end up in a dark hallway where Jack is suddenly knocked over. Tommy runs to save him and sees it is just another guy desperate for some medicine. Still resentful towards him, Jack dismisses his help, and the two continue their search. Downstairs, Sam and Allison discuss the light that many people say to see in their final moments. Sam explains the phenomenon through the effect of endorphins in the system, but Allison believes it could be God. It is then that they hear demonic squeals starting faintly, and in the distance, getting louder over time. Shadows and figures also begin to rush past in the hallways, both there and upstairs, where Jack and Tommy are still located. Meanwhile, Sky tells Dan that she heard him talking to the guys about the betrayal, and warns him that he is forgiven for everything. She also confesses that she never believed in God, and only attended church to avoid awakening the neighborhood's ire, as she grew up in a very religious area. Then Sky begins to describe a very bright light, and these are her last words, to Dan's dismay. He is so shaken that he gets irritated to see Allison praying, as he does not accept the belief in a God who would do all this to him. After Dan leaves, Allison asks Sam to record her farewell video, and begins to talk about her own struggles with faith. At the same time, Jack and Tommy hear Dan yelling vows of hatred in the hospital courtyard. Peering through the window, the two are shocked to realize their friend is challenging God to kill him right there. Allison and Sam notice the generator light flickering, but Jack and Tommy are too concerned about Dan to notice. They pound on the glass of the window, pleading with their friend to stop saying those things at a time like this. Dan cannot hear them from down there, besides being devastated by pain. He thrusts his chest forward and screams at the sky, telling God to strike him without delay. Seeing that nothing happens, he falls to his knees and cries, exhausted. As soon as Dan stands up, a gigantic tentacle emerges from nowhere, hits his back, and pierces his body, sucking Dan towards the clouds. Jack and Tommy are horrified by the scene and run down, while Allison is still speaking to the camera. Sam struggles to remain calm, as now the lights are flickering frantically and a shadow appears behind Allison during one of the flashes. When Tommy and Jack reach the ground floor, the two are no longer there, and they only find Sky's body. They begin to search for the girls, and Tommy sees a cell phone lying on the ground. Already fearing the worst, he watches the end of the last video and sees that they were indeed attacked. Jack eventually finds Allison in a corner, and Sam arrives in tears, saying she is very scared and hugging Tommy. He hears his friends sobbing and is also devastated to see that Allison did not survive, but tells Jack that they need to get out of there. Only the two of them remain, along with Sam, and the only chance for survival is the emergency shelter. However, Jack is very shaken and refuses to leave Allison's side, reacting violently to these suggestions. Very patiently, Tommy says that he does not want to save himself alone and promises to stay by Jack's side for as long as he needs to say goodbye to Allison. It is nighttime again when the three leave and walk to the bridge the nurse mentioned. More people begin to appear as they get closer, until they find themselves in the middle of the crowd, and a voice comes from the loudspeaker giving instructions. The military announces that there is food and medicine for everyone and asks for calm when organizing the line. But the young people are already relieved to see so many people being helped and even find a group of people who were with them at the church. Then Sam shows the guys the entire video of Allison, in which she says she found her faith and affirms that she will choose God. Jack steps away, very moved, but Tommy seems intrigued by some detail. Thinking about the video, he concludes that the demons came to destroy the faith that remains in the world, and that is why they are attracted to it. This explains their concentration in the church during the first night, and now the attack on Allison right after that video. Just then, the loudspeakers begin playing religious music at a deafening volume. Tommy begins to search for the source of the sound, urging them to turn the music off as quickly as possible. At the same time, Jack is being baptized hurriedly, determined to follow Allison's example. Tommy arrives at the end of the rite, and the priest barely finishes his words when Jack is attacked. An invisible force lifts him into the air and bends his body in half with a horrible sound of breaking bones before throwing him into the terrified crowd. Everyone runs away, and Tommy briefly loses Sam, but soon finds her. The two embrace, and Sam says the way out is to make the final choice, just like Allison and Jack did. Tommy begs her not to leave him, but she simply says she will choose God too, and starts to distance herself, blending into the crowd. In the sky, thousands of fallen angels are descending towards the bridge, and one of them comes to take Tommy, carrying the young man away before he can make his choice.